Great to see you, Nichole. So the first day of the Trump administration is in the books. And I think this is a slight positive for Ukraine because what President Trump said was pretty negative about Putin. He said Putin has really harmed Russia and the Russian economy as a result of his illegal invasion of Ukraine. And he specifically mentioned the very substantial casualties that Russian troops are facing because of his decision to go to war in Ukraine. So I just got back from Ukraine last week. There was a lot of anxiety about what President Trump might do. So I think the Ukrainians probably see this as a positive that he started out criticizing Putin. It is getting some attention. It probably deserves more attention because everyone's trying to read the tea leaves and decide what is Trump going to do. So far, he has not, as far as I know, made an order to stop the supply of weapons by the U.S. to Ukraine. That's obviously crucial for the defense of Ukraine. He also has not eased the sanctions that Biden put on Russia after Putin invaded Ukraine. That's also a very good sign for the Ukrainians. So let's wait and see what he's going to do, but good signs right now.
All right, so kind of a wait-and-see approach. David, Mr. Trump yesterday said that he may speak to Putin, quote, very soon. What do you think that means, and what could those talks potentially consist of?
So I'm not surprised by that because remember, he said he was going to solve this war and end it within 24 hours. Obviously, that didn't happen, and let's give him some leeway. That was going to be really hard to do in such a short amount of time. But the way I expected he would try to resolve it would be by doing one-on-one diplomacy with Putin and with Zelensky. So the fact that he's talked about having a one-on-one meeting with Putin is not surprising. Remember, in his first administration as president, he met with Putin 3 times on a one-on-one basis. So it would make sense for him to do that. But then he's going to have to try to convince Putin to make a deal, which means getting Putin to compromise on things that he has said he would not compromise. Most important of those is a security guarantee by the U.S. and other countries to Ukraine that if there's a ceasefire and Russia backs out of it and attacks Ukraine again, that they'll be defended. Putin does not want that. President Zelensky absolutely has to have a security guarantee like that in order for him to do a deal.
So, David, how do you think Russia's war with Ukraine will proceed now that there is this new U.S. commander-in-chief and, that Trump did say he could basically end this war on day one?
It depends a lot, Nichole, on what Trump does with respect to the weapons. The Ukrainians are doing okay, losing a little bit of territory in eastern Ukraine. They're, back to being a bit outmanned, outgunned by the Russian military. The Russian military is manufacturing weapons. It's found ways to evade sanctions so it can get the component parts it needs in order to continue to develop weapons. Meanwhile, the Ukrainians need more weapons. So if the U.S. were to cut off those weapons, then you could see the balance of power on the battlefield shifting to Russia. But if we continue to provide those weapons, and if European countries could step up and maybe make up for any deficit that happens as a result of any decisions by President Trump, and the Ukrainians get the weapons that they need, I think they'll continue to fight very hard to defend themselves. And if these new sanctions that Biden put in place about a week or 2 ago on Russia, which were targeting the oil sector, if those are kept in place by the Trump administration, that's going to hurt the Russian economy more. So that also could help Ukraine.
And just really quickly, David, how closely should the U.S. be keeping an eye on this Russia-China alliance?
Oh, it's so important, right? Because Russia doesn't have that many friends, right? It's got North Korean troops, fighting in Russia to help defend the territory that Ukraine took. But, North Korea is a weak country. China is a very strong country. It has the economy. It has the capacity to really support Russia. So what the Biden administration tried to do was to keep China on the sidelines. They weren't fully successful because China is providing component parts and other equipment to Russia, but it isn't providing significant military weapons and other military support. We want that to continue. The Trump administration has to push very hard for China to stay out of this war.
All right. David Tafuri, always great to speak with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Nichole.
Well, still to come.